Is there no hope?
None, unless the ring be destroyed. But alas, it is lost with its bearer Frodo. All is gone.
Hello and welcome. I recently reviewed Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings from 1978, which you can watch in the links below, and I wanted to continue with some other Lord of the Rings adaptations. This is a new series that I've started where I'll go back and analyze old movies and TV shows that, well, didn't do great. And I want to see if they've aged like fine wine, if they were deserving of the reviews they received, or even worse, if they curdled into sour milk. In this video, we're going to be looking at The Return of the King.
That still only counts as one.
No, not that Return of the King. I want to go back to the year of 1980 and look at this Return of the King. The Return of the King was an animated musical fantasy television film, which is a friggin' mouthful if I ever saw one. But in the 80s, these television films were all the craze with the hip kids. One of the directors of the film, Arthur Rankin Jr., actually worked on a lot of these television films. He also made The Hobbit, which, maybe we'll talk about that in a future video. Wink wink. Mr. Rankin actually directed the classic Frosty the Snowman movie.
Now, give me that hat or else.
Or else? What?
But anyways, going back to the topic at hand, The Return of the King aired on ABC on May 11th, 1980. Maybe I'm just not used to these television movies, but it's very strange watching a movie that has commercial breaks. The film's also only 98 minutes long, which is crazy when you realize how much content there is to cover in the book. And as you can imagine, they had to cut a lot. So let's go over what's actually covered in this movie.
They're opening up.
The film starts many years after the events from The Lord of the Rings, at Bilbo's 129th birthday. All of his friends are there, and they have a minstrel because, well, Bilbo is a man of class. The minstrel's purpose is to help them reminisce about the past events. Since the filmmakers didn't make The Fellowship nor The Two Towers, they try to summarize everything from those books in one song before getting into the events of the third book.
Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom accepted a heavy burden for the fires to consume.
Believe it or not, but starting a film on the book series' third and final book, probably not the smartest idea.
He's gone loony, I tell you.
I think it goes without saying that the film is really, really confusing, even for someone who knows Lord of the Rings. The story jumps around between Frodo and Sam gallivanting through Mordor and the Battle of Minas Tirith. It begins right after Shelob's Lair and ends with Frodo and Bilbo sailing off to the Undying Lands. And there's a lot of ground to cover in between those two events. So the film is pretty rushed. They throw a lot of characters at you without saying much about them at all. Like, we see Pippin in Denethor's custody, and they explain why he's there, but it doesn't really amount to much in the film. And when Rohan comes to save the day, since a lot of these characters were introduced and developed in the second book, they basically just show up without any explanation in this film. They briefly introduce Theoden, but when he dies, there's barely any emotional impact because, well, who even is this guy?
No, snowmen, no!
Also, you'd think the King of Rohan would get a better death scene. And don't even get me started on Eowyn. She literally shows up to kill the Witch King, and that's it.
Uncle, I have avenged thee.
She was never seen before this, and we never see her again after this. On that note, near the end of the Battle of Minas Tirith, the orcs are starting to lose hope, so they start committing suicide en masse. But they get a glimpse of hope when they start seeing the black sails. But unfortunately for them, it's just Aragorn commanding an entire fleet seemingly by himself. This is literally the first time we see Aragorn in this film, apart from at the beginning at Bilbo's birthday party, and it's genuinely not clear why he's commanding this fleet or how he even got a hold of these ships in the first place. But since he's such a rambunctious swashbuckler, everyone follows his leadership into Mordor.
Then, if the choice be mine, I choose to march.
Anyways, let's hop over to our friends in Mordor. From watching this film, you would never guess that Frodo is the main character, because he really doesn't do very much. The film shows their struggles as they approach Mount Doom.
This hellish Mordor. First it sears you, then it freezes you.
Mr. Frodo.
And the weight the ring has on Frodo. They also cover Frodo's testiness towards Sam, but they don't explain why he's acting that way, so he just looks like a big jerk.
Give it to me. Give it to me at once. You can't have it.
All right, Mr. Frodo.
Also, this is Gollum. He looks like a bipedal salamander, or something you'd fight in Monster Hunter, but he's got pretty slick skills with boulders.
Give it to us!
When they're in the belly of Mount Doom, Gollum and Frodo do the invisible man tango, and Gollum bites off Frodo's finger. There's no blood, of course, because this is a kid's movie. And in his moment of bliss, Gollum forgets where he is and...
Ring!
As the ring melts, Mount Doom falls apart. Aragorn and co are waiting outside, and they're thinking they're pretty fricked.
The realm of Sauron is ended.
And with him us. For the great cannot tell good from evil, my friend.
Die well, Samwise!
But miraculously, they're saved by the eagles. Literally, they're all carried away by eagles, horses and all. That would take a lot of eagles.
The Lord of the Eagles and his legions. Our armies are saved.
And that's pretty much it. The king hath returneth, and they crown Aragorn, and they all live happily ever after. I think Bilbo summarizes the plot best.
But alas, look.
All the east is moving, and even now the wind of thy hope cheats thee.
This movie is a big mess. The plot is all over the place, and every aspect is super rushed. Characters are either thrown in randomly, never to be seen again, or they're completely cut out from the story. Legolas and Gimli, two very major characters from the books, aren't even in the movie at all, nor even mentioned.
No.
Something that's not really explained is the power of the ring. At one point, the film makes it seem like the ring gives you wizard-like powers. Later on, Sam has some fantasies while he carries the ring for Frodo, and the film makes it seem like the ring would make him this all-powerful king. Frankly, I'd love to live in Sam's world. All hail King Sam. I understand that the ring is manipulative, and that's the point they're trying to make, but all I'm saying is some explanation would have been nice.
Now, I must bear your loathsome weight.
They also mispronounce a lot of names throughout the movie.
And your Dark Lord Sauron?
Cirith Ungol, minus Tirith.
The Phial of Gladriel.
But that's to be expected from a team that can't even spell productions correctly.
'Twas bad manners you showed me before.
Now, those last 2 points are a little nitpicky, but I think my biggest gripe with the storytelling is their inability to show, not tell.
A woman? Eowyn? 'Tis Lord Theoden's niece. She wanted to ride with us, but he forbade. She disguised as a knight and she came hither. In storytelling, your audience can understand what's going on if you show them context, and most of the time, it's better to show them what's happening and not tell them what's happening. So as a result, in this film, it's not very interesting for the audience to watch a film that just tells you everything that's going on. Let the audience think a little. And I don't care that the film's catered towards a younger audience. Kids are smart enough to figure out what's going on their own if you let them. Do those Palantir things ever lie?
Never.
They also do this a lot, not just with the narration, but with the many, too many in fact, musical numbers. There are a lot of musical numbers in this movie. I mean, it is a musical after all, but they all have kind of the same bland sound.
Leave tomorrow till it comes. Sleep will ease your mind.
They're all this men's choir type chanting song, and they feel like they go on and on. Although there is one song that really slaps.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today. But the Lord of the lashes says, nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a whip, there's a way.
Like, damn, I wish they put that much effort into the other songs because it's only downhill from here. They reuse a lot of the songs throughout the movie. They introduce the events of the Return of the King with the song Frodo of the Nine Fingers.
Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom. It started with a hobbit in Gollum's cave of gloom.
Like, the guy saved Middle-earth. Don't you think you could give him a better title than Of the Nine Fingers?
Why does he have 9 fingers?
And then there's this Ring Bearer song that plays over and over and over.
The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, stands on the very brink of fame.
This song plays so many times throughout the film. Every time you hear it, you feel like you lose a bit of your sanity. There really isn't much variation from each song, but you know I'll be downloading that Whip song because it's a frickin' bop. The Return of the King had 2 directors, Jules Bass, and our boy ARJ. Before the film came out, it was threatened with a lawsuit by the Tolkien estate, claiming they didn't properly acquire the rights to the books. So they were off to a great start. The budget for the film was $3 million, which is a pretty small budget when you consider that the animation looks pretty good, especially for 1980. And that's because they outsourced the animation to Japan. Like, Japan knows what's up.
This creature is Sayuri's mama. Mama!
The company they outsourced to was called TOPCRAFT, which also made Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Sound familiar? Well, fun fact, in 1985, this company TOPCRAFT actually went bankrupt and its assets were split in half. Half of the company was bought by Disney and became Disney Animation Japan, but the other half went on to become the one and only Studio Ghibli, with the founder of TOPCRAFT, Toru Hara, becoming Studio Ghibli's first manager. So the brainpower of a pre-Studio Ghibli really helped the animation shine in this film. All in all, the film had a very lukewarm reception from critics and fans. It scored 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb and a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And then west to the haunted pass of Cirith Gorgor and the untold legions of the Black Lord.
In conclusion, the film is pretty messy. I think the decision to skip The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers was a poor one, and it makes the film look incomplete and confusing. I said this about Ralph Bakshi's film, and I'm going to say this about this film too. If you knew nothing about Lord of the Rings and you watched The Return of the King, it wouldn't make any sense. It's not a good standalone film. The characters aren't developed at all, and the storytelling leaves a lot to be desired. And the music isn't very fun nor interesting for being a musical. But the question is, does the film hold up? Is it better, the same, or worse than what the critics gave it when it was released in 1980? Let's plug in the old Retro Review TV and find out. There you have it, folks. I think the movie deserves the score it received. It's an incoherent mess, and it's kind of a snooze fest, but it does get some points for having somewhat decent animation for its time. And with that, that was The Return of the King. And as always, thanks for watching.